So yeah, we have started the recording as well. I hope all of you are for September attempt.
Yeah, that's
Okay. Yeah.
How do we do this?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, guys. Since we're nearing the exams, so we were wondering that we should do this one session. Obviously, we can have more if you have any questions, but then we were receiving questions from
you
students.
too.
Questions from some students, so we thought of arranging a coffee session so that everybody can hear what questions or what issues the other students are facing, so that helps all of you as a wider group as well. So yes, let's
Yeah.
get started.
Who wants to start? And maybe people, you can raise hand as in when you have questions so that we can take line by line.
Okay, I'll go ahead with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, Shalini, go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, I feel like day two is a very big problem. Little bit comfortable with day one and day three, but given the number of AOs we have to write, and also the lot of technical concepts that are being tested in day two, it's one big concern for me. And second thing, which might also be related to this one, what I was thinking on a broader perspective, um, for because tax and other aspects are only tested in day three, whereas audit and FR are tested in day two. I was thinking, is it a good approach to start the audit or assurance AOs first, and then go to the rest of the two MA and FR and day two? Is this good approach to do? So yeah, these are my questions.
And that's why we, tell everyone to join coffee chats. So I think we have discussed this specific point in the last two coffee chats.
Okay,
So
okay.
we would, strongly advise you to start with assurance.
And
You
everybody here who's listening, please, we
know that.
cannot emphasize enough on the fact that on day two, please start with assurance.
And in fact, just before the call, I was checking a few CFE, papers as well. You guys are missing out on the assurance opportunities. Just trying to do better at FR. That is not how you should be approaching. Even if you get a C in FR and you're leaving three AOs on assurance, you are missing out on day two. So Shalini, you are right on the spot. I think that's a good strategy, and that is what we suggested before as well. In terms of your first question, when you asked, how, day two is getting challenging, I know it would be more around time constraint, especially we know the pain points, it's especially FR and, how you are managing all the AOs together. Try to draw a line among different AOs, try to, put timelines, how much time you are spending where, because it's all about time management in the end. So maybe Shalini, try starting off with assurance. Uh, 9-10 minutes each AO, whatever time you're left. See how your cases are turning out, how much time you're spending on a specific FR issue, or even other issues where you are losing out on time.
Yeah, because that's the most important thing that we always say, that if you start with audit, there's a rough breakup of AOs. Normally, we talk about 13 AOs in the day two exam, out of which normally 7 AOs, 6 or 7 AOs are for assurance or your elective role, whichever it is. And then the remaining 6 AOs are normally FA and or MA. It could be 3-3, it could be 4 FA, 2 MA, or whatever the mix can be. But then the point here is that assurance is only tested on day two. So if you miss on even say 2 AOs of assurance, you put yourself in a very big risk, because even if you say you could not, you didn't have enough time, or you couldn't give your 100% to the FAAOs on day two, you still have time on day three to perform well on the FA and balance that out. But then if you miss on assurance AOs on day two, you don't get a second chance with assurance. It means you put your elective role on in a risk. So even if out of the 7 questions, there are 2 questions in AO that you don't know, or you're not sure. It happened with me in my exam. I still attempted the 5 AOs that I knew best in or assurance. Then when I moved to the other two, I still knew that I have to finish those in, roughly 10 minutes. That's what Ravneet and I decided, that for each AO, we will give like roughly 10 to 12 minutes. So I knew that within 12, I have to write something. Like I couldn't leave those AOs for the last. That, first I'll do audit 5 AOs, then I'll do FA, MA, and then I'll see if I have responses to those two assurance AOs. Because you never come back to them. You cannot. In day two, you don't get the time. So whatever you know, just do it.
Yeah, it's really important to draw that line.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we are covered
Okay.
with this
Okay.
question.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, so try doing that. I think that should be helpful. Another tip on day two would be, and for everybody who might have this question, Ravneet and I used to do our outline on the exam, like the case exam itself. Like we didn't draw a separate outline in Word or a physical notes. We didn't draw an outline. So that saved a lot of time for us. So,
So how does that play out
yeah.
is you basically, when you are reading your case, so just do the headers, say analysis of whatever opportunity, uh, say specific procedures, WIR, you just slot all the questions at one go.
Like you
Bold,
go by the pointers,
like
like
1, 2,
number
3.
one, this is the assessment opportunity. Number two, WIR of this. Number three, this.
And then what you do is, so once you have slotted all of them, say 20, 25 minutes, you have read the exam or the paper, then you come to say the assurance part. So we are not saying you put the assurance on top. So what we used to do, we would slot all those 13, come to the the last 7 AOs, and then write each of them. Once we are done with assurance, say 7 AOs, 70 minutes, then we come to FR or MA or tax. Oh, sorry, not tax. So FR or MA, the first 6 AOs.
Like we didn't, in terms
So
of
we are not
AOs,
saying
we
that we
didn't.
would slot it up.
Yeah, we didn't put the 7 audit AOs together, 1 to 7. It was in the way it was asked in the exam, but just that we just used to enter, and then put our response in the audit AOs first and then move to the FR. But with the outline, when we used to have, I know that there's a lot of information that you would normally note down in an outline, that, there's risks, there's opportunities, there's a like an interlinkage between page something on page 10 and page 2. So we would do all those markings on the exam itself. Like for risks, we would do an R1, R2, R3, something like that, that we don't have to read the paper again when we are attempting the response, but we put like, little diminishers or something that we know that, this is for us to come back and just pick it up, that okay, this is one risk I've identified and I need to write this down in my RAM question.
Like the question we were just discussing, like the WIR question. So, when you're reading that, just put
W1, W2,
you
W3.
may have a I, you may have a, R. So, and even on in all of that, or those 4, 5 paragraphs, you already know that you are attempting, let's say, 4 weakness. That is what is required. So you just put 4 main W, so that whenever you come to that point, you don't have to read the entire question again. You just go where you marked it. So that helps save time.
You already know that you have the 5 weaknesses. Now, if in exam you're only writing 4, you can also select that, okay, these 4 look more significant to me, so I'll just write these 4 and I should be good with my response. So that.
Got it. So following the same approach for day three, because tax is tested only on day three and not. So should we also give more importance to those AOs when compared to other to reach the breadth component?
I won't say so. You have to touch surely, but remember that FR and MA have that competency, or the depth in FR and MA is also tested on D3. So you
Correct.
have to balance it out. You have to balance it out between the depth in FR, MA plus the coverage of the other.
breadth
So
of other.
let's say there are 3 tax questions. If you attempt 2, it may be okay, but if you do not attempt at all, you are at risk. So in fact, we were seeing one of the students who could not clear last time around. Everything was pass except tax. So imagine if you are not attempting tax questions, you have flunked.
Yeah, but in no way do we mean that, you can skip on one question and that would be okay. Your
Maybe
motive, that could be okay, but that cannot be okay as well in your case. Maybe because maybe, the other tax questions you attempted, maybe you didn't get a C in those, maybe you get an RC in those,
So
right?
you cannot keep that
yeah,
mindset that when you go
exactly.
in the exam, you are not attempting this. Like
Yeah.
you cannot keep
You
that
have to
mindset.
finish the exam.
Yeah.
Like keep that in your mind so that
Obviously, there would be some misses, but
Hmm.
you cannot strategize that, I am not doing this.
Understood.
Yes, further questions?
Yeah, if I can go.
Yeah, hi, Apan.
Yeah, hi. So in day three cases, so like I know, so if I know the time is through and I know like I am very short of time and I have the option either I can go for going with C, like attempt writing 3 or 4 points, or I have the option of going for RC for each of the AO, maybe addressing 2 points. So what should be my strategy in that case? If I know I am running short of time, should I go for C's for the AOs and leaving one AO untouched? Or should I go for RCs and touching each for the AO?
You surely know how you actually get a RC, then maybe RCs are better because it sounds better. Like there is no specific answer honestly to this, but if you have put, yeah, like I am in that situation, I have 10 minutes and I have three questions to go. So maybe
Hmm.
I would go for three RCs, but I should know how do I get a RC? Like you mentioned, 2 points. 2 points may not be enough. Say if you are mentioning 3 points, 3 points generally, there is no guideline, but 3 points generally give you an RC on questions. So I would attempt three questions, but you need to know how your exam is getting evaluated. So if you are, I think you are following capstone 2. So if you're following capstone 2, so do look at the feedback guide. How are, questions evaluated? You should know how you actually get an RC. So if you know, that is when you are in a situation, you would be able to get a RC.
But it also depends on if you know all three questions. Because
Yeah.
like in my day two case in the exam, it so happened that I was left with two MA questions. And one of the MA questions I didn't only know, like I was pretty sure that I don't know it. So in that case, what you could do is that you could instead do your best in the two questions that you know and don't touch the third one at all, because you know that even if you attempt something and put your 5 minutes into it, you would still not reach RC,
So that's a
right?
really good point, I guess.
So
because-
you just focus that time instead on the other two so that you can ensure a C on those two.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
very situational, right? So it depends on.
Yes.
Okay. And when Ravneet, when you said like I am following capstone to marking guide, so shouldn't isn't like that the approach even the CPA would be following like for assessing our cases, like want 3 points, like because when I'm seeing the marking and in most of the cases it's like if I'm addressing writing 3 weaknesses, 3 implications, 3 recommendations and all, so then it's generally C. If I'm writing to it's generally RC, so I'm just going by that approach.
So if you talk about WIR, normally yes, that's the point. If WIR, you are addressing WI and R for three, you may get a C. There are cases upon where you may need four, so you cannot strategize on that.
Okay, yeah,
So
okay.
basically, it depends on the market guide. You may get a C in all of them.
Yeah, but one point to add there also is that sometimes it happens that the two weaknesses that you see, maybe one of the weakness is not a part of the key guide and they a marking guide, and the marking guide actually suggests some other weaknesses in there, because the ones maybe you identify, one of them could be minimal and that was not a part of the guide. It has happened with me when I was practicing cases.
Yeah.
So in
Okay.
that case, I understood that I always have to keep a buffer of one.
One. Mm-hmm.
Right, so that
Yeah.
even if like one of them wasn't a part of the response when the examiner is checking my case, at least like I have that buffer that okay, I gave another one.
Yeah.
So that was the thought process that I went
Like
by.
try to go at least three.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Do we have any other questions?
Can I go next?
Yes, I know.
Firstly, thank you so much, guys, for the FR crash course. It was, I cannot emphasize enough how much it was helpful. Like, I couldn't attend the live session, but then I viewed the recordings, and I have noticed how much it saves up our time, especially on day three. Like, luckily, I went through the first recording and the next case for day two that I solved had both intangible and PPE, which you covered back to back.
Wow.
And I was able to manage like the technicals and everything in like less than in about 12 to 13 minutes. And I was through with those AOs. So those were like great. Secondly, the tip to do assurance first saved up time because, especially on WIR and risk and procedure questions, like once when we are reading the case and we sort of write those down in our structure already, and when we just have to fill up the remaining information, it gets done in like 7 to 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So that is again good. Um, the area of struggle I feel for me is day one. I wrote the Amuzu Park's case in Capstone 2. I did write it for week 3, and I got a marginal fail. So it was like a concern for me because when I read the feedback, it was majorly not for the quants, it was for the integration with situational factors. And I saw that my integration was not enough. So I want to know like what would be the expectation saying like we have to link with mission vision KSF's financial objectives like every time in each strategic issue, or like how is it analyzed? Because I remember precisely if this is the case, then I agree that I did not link enough.
That's
So I'm
right.
not sure what is the like how do we go
Yeah.
it marginal
You
pass
got
or
it
clear
completely
pass?
right. And in the last coffee chat also, we covered this with somebody on the day one
Yeah.
question. You have to make it a point that the qualitative analysis that you're doing in each AO, you are matching the pros and cons to either the KSF mission, vision, or the corporate values out of these four. And that is why we also emphasize that, try to remember those in your mind from the Capstone 1 case. Obviously, you do get a copy of the Capstone 1 case and you can easily refer, but you know that you don't have that mental capacity and availability to, keep referring back. And then for each point, you're looking, okay, what matches, what matches, what matches. If you already have in your mind that, okay, they were saying that their key mission is to say diversify. And one of the key missions is diversify. And when you have that in your mind already, and you see it on the, as part of that situational analysis, that with this, if they go with this financing option or this project, they will be able to diversify. So you immediately catch that, okay, this is going to be a pro, and I can link it to their one of the key missions.
Yeah.
So just go by that. And then, Ravi, do you want to add that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one?
That we have three points we
Yeah,
used to
sure.
write, and then
Yeah. First of all, thanks, Anna, for your, positive
yeah.
feedback on the first two
Yeah.
points that you mentioned. Surely, on the FR, we actually try to integrate investment property, PPE, and inventory and intangible assets all at one go because those are all the confusing portions here and there. So yeah, thanks for that. On your question, uh, okay. So marginal fail is like okay. Even before the exam, me and Guneet was still fine, but I was really skeptic if I would be able to identify. So I would come to your pros and cons. Pros and cons. First, I will address the overall. What is the hidden AO, which you were mentioning. The hidden AO which people are not able to identify. So this was one of my main concerns as well, that I was not able to identify hidden AOs, especially because there are very limited cases that you get to even experience. So I think we we wrote two cases and I was not able to identify hidden AOs in both of them. I identified something else, but which was not in line with what the institute had the answer for. So I was really skeptic, but as luck would have it, we didn't have a hidden AO on our case, but we had a fifth AO which was specifically mentioned. So if you would see September 23, so September 23 had a fifth AO. So and when I came back home, I was very anxious, and we were discussing that I I wrote five AOs, but there was no hidden AO. So did I miss something? So then she mentioned, okay, fifth AO was the hidden AO or whatever. So hidden AO is a challenge coming back. Uh, uh, it is slightly, you know, you need to practice or make up your mind, okay, what is the pervasive issue throughout the case?
That's the
I,
key.
yeah, I hope in your attempt, what, in 20 days, the AO is very much visible to you all and you're able to identify. But
Yeah.
this is the challenge for all of them. that
It
is,
will be something which will impact all these strategies. It will not be focused on any one proposal
Yeah.
or any one,
yeah.
I would say proposal only, but then it
Mm.
will be like holistic all over. It will impact everything. So
Like in
I
our
think
case,
that's one
it
of
was
the
something
indicators.
related to
Yeah,
financing. Like
financing.
we had 4 projects,
Yeah.
but the finances were limited. So, something related
They'd
to
specified
financing.
that, okay, that, you have to evaluate if they will need additional financing or not. So they were very clearly put it up.
Yeah.
So that is a challenge for all of us, even in our attempt. That is the only solace I can give you.
Yeah.
And just try to strategize how you can do that the best. On your pros and cons part, as Guneet mentioned, you should not try. You should memorize all of them, and
Mm.
it really helps. So Guneet and me were, we used to learn and memorize those by heart. You should know what is KSF values. These could change in the exam, but there could be one or two modifications
Yeah,
tops.
it doesn't change much.
It won't be like the business has changed, even the business has changed. That won't be the case because it is a continuation of your last case. So memorize those by heart and put 3 points in each AO. So you normally had to write 3 plus 3, like three pros, 3 cons. So
Not less than three. Just
less
make
than
sure that in every
AO.
situational analysis, in every AO, you're doing 3 plus 3.
Yeah, 3
Mm.
plus 3, that is the structure. And how you incorporate from KSF values is you need to incorporate 3 points. So
Yeah.
we used to think that we would incorporate 3 points and try if you can segregate not all three in pros or not all three in cons. Try to segregate maybe 2 in pro, 1 in con,
One or two in
and
con.
the other ones you will be able to find out easily.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this
Because
is
it
the
happens
structure.
sometimes that you're not able to, link all pros and cons to what their values could be, what, the other mission, vision, and everything. But then it can take a minute or two to link things because, first two will be easy. Like two of them you can surely link. But
Yeah.
then the third one or the fourth one can be a little tricky, but then you have to drag it there to reach.
Yeah.
Because I used to, like, I remember that I used to actually drag it and somehow make it link to,
Yeah.
one of that.
And the good thing here is that you already know what those points would be. You don't have to find out.
Mm.
Like this point, you were mentioning diversity of products.
Yeah, that they
Like,
want to
like they want to
or
diversify.
expand.
And if say if there is a new product that they are wanting to launch, you already know that one of the pros is that diversification is the KSF or value, and you have, linked with that.
Yeah, and
So
it
you-
works the opposite way also.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessary that in the question they will say that it will help in diversification. You won't catch that word. But if you know in your head that this was one of the AOs, this was one of the missions, and then this project helps in that. So you automatically created one pro in your own head by this analysis only.
Mm.
Right, like it's not something that they mentioned that will happen very clearly. They didn't mention that diversification will happen if they select this plan, but that
Yeah.
is something that you just drove reciprocally from the KSF itself.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that also adds on to the KSFs that you the pros and cons that you're writing. So qualitative analysis is very important in addition to the quantitative analysis for every A.
Yeah. And is it okay, like if by any chance we get to link like the same KSF twice in
in
the
different,
same strategic issue? Because I
uh,
think we can, like I heard in one of the webinars of the CPA body, they said that even if there are like such pros wherein you can link, if you if you want to link the same KSF twice,
Yeah, we used to
I think it
discuss
is
this.
acceptable.
See, you can obviously, but then just try that you can touch as many as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not, it's better than linking something than not linking at all.
Yeah.
So if you're not able to link it to anything else, definitely link it to the same thing. But then just try touching on as many, different values
KSF or
and
values
KSFs as you can.
Yeah, yeah. And with respect to the quants, like the calculations that I did were not exactly which were there in the strong sample response or the solution. But then is it okay if we use some other quant tool and they have used something else and like we just state assumptions and just our
Zero.
conclusion is in line? with
Doing
what we're doing.
bonds in day one is not much of a concern as
Yeah.
long as you are using the major ratios. If you would like to mention the major
So,
ratios that we use.
so one thing with this was that I used to face a lot of problem with the quants, because whenever you see the response, they've done new things in every AO. So that
Yeah.
was a problem, that you can't actually memorize everything, that okay, if this sort of a question comes, this is what I have to do.
Yeah.
So there were two, three
Like
quants,
NPV, IRR.
NPV, payback period, and a general cash flow,
Yeah.
which again drives into NPV only, but then sometimes they give you yearly outflows, yearly inflows,
So
so
you
that
just discount it out.
so you
Yeah.
discount it out and make a cash flow.
Yeah.
But then these three things, you will notice that these three things always come in hand. Like whatever info you have, these three quants will always be there. And then I would not stop at NPV, that okay, and now I applied NPV and I'll just leave it. But I would always add that with a payback. That you can all, because you always have the initial
Numbers ready.
outflow, you have those numbers, so it's just like a simple calculation of years. So I would always have these two at the back of my hand. If it is something that it's very evidently given in question that you can do it through another quant, then do it with that. But I just wanted to have that satisfaction in my mind that okay, these two AOs, if in the question I'm completely blank and I don't know what to do, I'll just these two will be there for my rescue. So just
Yeah.
know that you can use these two if you are completely blank in the exam. Otherwise, I think like Vaishnavi is also mentioning in the chat that there can be ratio analysis that you can do if if you have the information for that and you remember formulas, you can do that. So that's
Yeah.
entirely up to you.
I think
And more or less, it is also dependent on what kind of information with respect to the quants is given. If they have given us like industry trends and like for ratios and stuff, then of course we have to do a ratio analysis and stuff.
Yeah.
yeah.
Normally, I think they used to give, they do give like a, they do give like an ROI or something.
Yeah,
So you
Yeah.
do have to
always.
calculate
Because
that.
like initially you would have those objectives set.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
the management is saying that for ROI you need to get that 5 or 10%
Yeah.
whatever. So you
Mhm.
need to
You
surely
need
do
to do
that.
that calculation in every AO then to
Yeah.
justify.
Yeah, to justify.
Right.
That is the linkage. That linkage you always have to do in every AO.
Quantitative analysis honestly is not a very deal breaker on day one. If you are doing a couple of ratios, just fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's
And
there.
for the fifth AO that you were talking about, like I was able to honestly figure out that there was a fifth AO and I did solve that, but that is majorly operational, right? We don't have to do any calculations for that. That is just
It
like a
depends on what
qualitative.
the AO is, honestly. Sometimes
Yeah.
it can be I do think that it has sometimes
Overall
yeah
financing.
it's might have, sometimes it might have a calculation. I do remember that, Ravneet, you remember there was that one case where there was some irregularities in the BOD.
Yeah.
And in that it was actually a qualitative AO. There was no quants in
I
that.
remember.
Yeah, but there was some disconnect between the BOD and they'd made that a fifth AO, that because
Yes.
this director is doing this and he's looking at his personal interest, so there's a conflict of interest and this may impact. So there can be a qualitative AO as well.
Could be a
It's
chance.
not necessary that
Not
you have a
necessary.
quant.
Normally, if there would be a quant, what I remember is it would be mostly around financing part.
Financing.
If you're able to
Yeah.
manage all the projects, in one
Something
go or
like
not.
that.
Yeah.
But then one more thing that really helped us, and this is for everybody on the call, that in day one, normally when you would see the board issued reports or even strong responses, you would see that in the first, like when you start the day one exam, people normally start with mission, vision, values, KSFs, and then you do a financial analysis. So
Don't do that.
Ravneet and I never did that
Don't do
financial
that.
analysis. People will go crazy with all the ratios
like
and
spending 10-15 minutes. I think, and I think Vaishnavi's question was also like, should we do ratio analysis on day one? So I think Vaishnavi, if you mean that, what Puneet is just
if you mean
mentioning,
this, then you
don't
can
do
skip
that.
it. Don't do it.
Because we specifically analyze the feedback guide as to are we supposed to do that? No, we are not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
I think Vaishnavi's question is that.
Yeah.
So no, Vaishnavi,
Don't do that. I specifically wanted to mention because it would take so much time. And I remember one of the friends that I entered day one with, And it Nitish, it
Yeah.
was Nitish. And then we came out of the exam, and this guy, he's like, I was not able to complete my exam, and I was like, what were you doing? He's like, I spent so much time on that, financial analysis that I was not able to complete that, and it took so much time. And then by the time I finished it and I reached to the actual AOs, I just had like an hour and a half left, and I was so tense that I just messed everything up. So
Mm.
don't get into that financial analysis. There's no specific marks for that.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So
in feedback guide, it clearly mentions like mission, vision, values, cases, like just that. It nowhere
if
it
you
says
just do
that.
But there
three
is
of that, I think you
Yeah.
get
there is one specific point to that, or a caveat. If you are missing or leaving this portion, you have to hit all the others.
yeah.
So it
Mm,
is
yeah,
not,
yeah.
if you
But
are
we can like not perform any analysis and just state that this is like the financial objective of the company.
financial
And
objective like that is important to
yeah,
mention
that
that
is,
for
yeah.
you as well, and in terms of presentation, but just the quantitative analysis or
Yeah.
what is
Mm.
happening in the
Where
financials.
they give you, I think, market
Yeah.
shares and
Yeah.
the like market growth and everything, and you're just like
You you don't have to analyze anything
yeah,
else.
you don't have to do that analysis. Do that analysis in the quant of the AO where it's required.
Yeah.
Like for ratios, maybe like a couple of ratios, like the BOD ROI ratio that they specifically mentioned that
Yeah.
we want this ratio, only then we'll go forward with the project. So do that analysis there, but then don't do that first analysis, which we do as part of the situational analysis
Mhm.
when we start the
Yeah.
exam. And one more thing on the day one, I can remember that never skip your conclusions in the day one, right? And this applies to the four AOs. But then even after you say you miss one AO, like miss one AO or couldn't complete the qualitative of the last AO, and or maybe you couldn't find the hidden thing or whatever it is, never miss on the overall conclusion. I think if you go through the feedback guide of day one, you would see that if somebody does everything, but then they just miss on the overall conclusion, which is like the final conclusion after you're done with everything, uh, I I think that they don't pass you
Yeah, they won't pass you.
with the
Okay.
That's
overall
marginal fail.
yeah, that's marginal fail. So overall conclusion after all those 4 5 AOs is the most important
Yeah.
thing. Even if you've left something in your last AO, save some time, save 2 4 minutes for that final analysis, and don't skip that. That is really important.
So the structure is really important on day one. If you do not follow the structure correctly, so you may miss out.
Okay, that answers everything.
No worries.
We had a question in the chat
I
also.
think so. Yeah. So taking question, just some basic question. How many practice cases do you suggest for each day? I think we have mentioned this before. Say for day one, maybe one or two. For day two, you may practice anywhere between 6 to 8, and for day three, between 12 to 18. That was just the minimum and maximum that you can do. How much time do you recommend for reading and outlining for day two and day three? Day three, I would say 13 minutes, 12 minutes, 13 minutes.
Yeah.
Day two, do you remember the
I think
outline?
normally it's 1/4 of the
Yeah,
time, if I'm
normally,
not wrong.
normally it's 1/4. Anyone would like to chip in on that?
Like what time exactly do you guys spare for reading day
for
two?
reading the day two.
I think it was around.
It's recommended that we spend 60 minutes as per CPA guidelines, or in their webinars, that's what it is suggested.
Okay.
Shalini?
That is why I think.
But that includes outlining and everything as
Yeah,
along
that's
with reading.
Yeah, that's why I remember, because Ravneet and I didn't used to make an outline, so we used 45 minutes.
45. And Shalini, you had your hand raised as well.
Yes.
You have a question.
So when Anna was asking about quants of day one, so I wrote two cases in day one. Of course, one is yet to be corrected by you. But what I feel is, I understand they give objectives which could be operating margins or gross margins. No matter how much I try to remember, when I'm doing quants, I'm going to MA mode and forgetting these objectives and doing it in a different manner, and at the end not linking it or specifying it as what is wanted in the objective. So will that be considered as that quant attempted, though I do not link it with what they're asking in the objective?
So there could be different marking keys, but I would say yes. But now that you know already that you need to link, so try doing that. You have like 20 to 25 days more to,
Correct. Yeah.
prepare your mind for that. So try linking to that. Now that you have set in your mind that you're missing that out on, you never know what marking key possesses. Uh,
Mm,
and even if one of the quants are not checked, so it's not end of the day one that you need to hit everything.
correct.
But
And one,
try to link
sorry.
it as much as possible because you would know
Mm,
that even in day two, it's all about linking. The more you link, the more, safe you play. Yeah.
correct. One more question on overall conclusion that Gunit was suggesting. When I do not have time, what I do is copy the conclusions of all the cases and explain it a little bit. That should be fine, right?
Normally,
Explain it a little bit. I mean, tell them what I just happened and why I'm concluding it types, but not a detailed one which is there in the guides.
I know people don't get time to do that. Try seeing a strong response of how they do it. So
but I think I've seen that people normally do it
yeah,
like this.
yeah,
Yeah, even I think most of the strong responses are also in a similar way, but just the priority is different basis their
It's like
analysis.
what you have to do is that you just phrase that in a way that, if there's out of four, two projects that you said I accepted, right? Or
Correct.
so just move those upwards and maybe add just one line, just to like kind of emphasize more that what was the overall thought process, that why did you say a yes or give a go ahead to those two, and similarly for the last two that you say you didn't want to go forward with that, what was
Correct.
the thought process. But majorly you're right that don't spend your time writing the whole paragraph again. Just
Mm,
copy your conclusions from
yeah,
those four AOs and just
prioritize.
modify them a little.
Yeah, maybe spend like 7 minutes.
5, 7 minutes is enough.
Yeah,
But
okay.
like do that. Don't skip on that
don't skip that.
overall
Yeah.
conclusion.
Okay. Okay. I understood that. Yeah, one more, if I can suggest on the hidden AO. The first case I practiced, I missed on the hidden AO because same like how it happened to Ravnit, I could identify more than three hidden AOs and was confused which one to choose. And when I wrote the second case, I realized that particular hidden AO will be discussed more than once for sure. So when my second case had board differences, the governance issues that was there in two specific things, and that's how I could identify both the hidden AOs when I wrote the second case. And just a small observation if it can help to others.
Sure.
Thanks
That's
for that,
helpful.
Shalini.
Yeah.
Any further questions, guys? Focus areas and audit. Uh, we can maybe go back, Vaishnavi, on this one, and maybe text you back, or maybe in the group.
But
What would be
focus areas as
like
in I
important
didn't.
important audit areas? That is what you meant, Vaishnavi? Like any important audit areas?
Okay, maybe we can take the
Okay.
next question till then. Pragya, did you have a question?
Yeah, I want to ask, like, I know the pattern of day one, but I haven't written any case yet. I'll be starting now. So I just want to understand, like, how should you start writing day one case just to get an understanding, like, what should be the strategy for writing day one case? Like,
You should maybe start with knowing the structure of how you need to structure a day one. Second, start, if someone in the group can share, or maybe I can fetch and share any past day one strong response, not
okay,
one, just a strong response, knowing, okay, what is expected out of you. And
Because seeing a case would actually help you understand
right,
happening. In terms of the structure, if I can just give you a very brief idea, we normally start with just a strategic analysis, which we were talking about. You write down the mission, vision, key values, corporate values, if there's any board of director objectives, these 5-6 pointers just in the start, and these are just you're just noting them down from the case, right? There's no like analysis or anything else that you have to do. Then you start with the AOs. So normally there are 4 AOs and there's normally a one hidden AO. So total of 5 AOs that we are looking at. For each AO, you have to do a quantitative analysis and a qualitative analysis. It's not a choice. You have to do both for every AO in day one. So in quants, normally there will be numbers there. They would have given you outflows, inflows, calculations, different types of, it can be anything. So you do that quantitative analysis first, and then you move to the qualitative analysis of AO, so that or you always break that down into pros, cons, advantages, disadvantages. So normally we were saying that there's 3 advantages, always list down 3 advantages or pros and 3 cons or disadvantages. So mixture of 3 plus 3, and try to link at least 3 of these 6 qualitative factors to either KSF, mission, vision, corporate values, anything, but it is very important that you do that linkage for at least 3.
Okay.
And then you do a conclusion at the end of every AO. And then after you've done all those 5 AOs, the 5th AO normally, which is the hidden AO, it's not a quant analysis, it's just a pervasive issue in the whole case. You just have to identify that and just write a couple of paragraphs about it. It can be about, some
Could be say
conflict of
related to
interest.
overall financing.
Yeah, overall
or Could
financing.
be, people between the different board of
Yeah.
directors are, in conflict with each
Yeah.
other. So maybe suggest on
But
that.
there's no format to that one.
No
So it's
format.
normally just very,
You need to identify that.
yeah, you just need to identify and address that basically.
Yeah.
Then
Okay.
you just move on to your overall conclusion.
And Anna also mentioned just in the coffee chat these chats that she has shared a structure in the group. So if you would like to that.
Can you please reshare, Ina, because I guess I joined the group late. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
sure. I'll share it with you.
thank you. Also, Ravneet, I have a question. I asked you before that for audit, how many, like if there are 7 AOs, then for day 2, how many AOs we should try to get C. So the same question for MA and FA. Like it should be combined between day 2 and day 3, and I should try to get maximum Cs, or like for day 2 separate and day 3 separate.
So see, first is a general answer from us.
Yeah, general answer, but like just for understanding.
Yeah, sure. So you do not target the number of Cs, honestly.
Yeah.
You should not target that. No one ever should, because you don't know what questions you know and what you don't. You basically do a reasonable response for each question you write, and you are not targeting a RC or you are not targeting a CD. Just one thing that all should know, that do not target a CD, like competent with distinction. You won't get anything out of it. I think that's the basic
right.
one. So that is something you should not do. Other than that, try doing as reasonable as
Like just
possible.
give your best and
Give your
leave
best.
the result to the
Yeah.
examiner.
Because there would
No, no, I just want to know, like for MA and audit, it is day 2 and day 3 mix. Sorry, for FR and MA, it's day 2 and day 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Okay.
all you wanted to know? Sorry, that's all you wanted to know.
Yes, right. Yes,
So yes, depth is tested on day 2 and day 3 for
Combined for FR and MA.
but
Yeah.
assurance only on day 2.
Yeah, right. Yes, yes, yes.
And normally 50% of
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay.
so should be okay to get a C.
Okay. Yeah, that's all. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Any questions, anyone?
I have a question.
Hi, Kashmir. Yes.
Hey guys. I guess I'm interacting with you for the first time. I have a very AO specific question here. So yesterday I was solving a day 2 case and it was under IFRS for revenue recognition. And usually there's the 5-step model that we usually apply for revenue recognition, right? But I guess because I got panicked and whatever, because of anxiousness or whatever, I could not name the titles of those 5 steps. I just performed it. And also, secondly, it was not logical. Like we have the 5 steps, right? So first we would determine the transaction price and then we would allocate it. But I mean, the sequence was also not proper. But when I assessed my AO, I got to know that I have actually analyzed all the points, though not in a logical sequence and though not naming the titles of the 5 steps. Because if you see the handbook, they also do not have it like in pointer form 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? It's just identify performance obligations and they directly go to the 5th step, that is, recognize revenue and performance obligations are satisfied. So I just wanted to understand in such a case, in such a scenario, how do you, I didn't like know how to mark myself.
Again, really subjective question. So you know what is the best. Yeah, like you already know that you should have followed the 5 steps. Follow the follow those steps in the exam. But if you give that situation to us, like we are checking your exams, uh, I would maybe rate that as a RC, and Guneet may rate that as a C because you have analyzed everything. So it is really subjective.
Because
But
it's really subjective. So the point when you write a response is not that you are touching everything. It's more so how easy you make it for the examiner when he's
yeah,
marking it, right?
Hmm.
Like if you give specific headings, like if you're touching on all the points and you, because like what we, when we were studying, we used to hear from everybody that it's very important that you memorize those 5 steps. And I'm sure that you also memorize them, but it's just
Mhm.
that you couldn't write it because maybe the time or maybe you panicked or whatever the case may be. But
Mhm.
again, if it's just like just the headings, and that can actually help you or help the examiner navigate through your response very seamlessly or easily,
yeah,
like why not do that, right? What's the harm in doing that if you are following those steps, but
yeah.
just not following that in a chronological order? So
Yeah, I didn't intend to miss out those 5 steps. It was just out of anxiousness, probably, I feel, because after, when I was assessing myself, I felt, oh my God, I missed naming those 5 titles, and it could have been in a logical sequence other than, random
It's not a
analysis
very
here and
hard
there.
and fast rule that you need to
yeah,
mention everything
because the
from
IFRS also doesn't
from the
list it down like that.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But yes, in most of the AO responses or the board reports that you would see
Mhm.
are listed down. So
Yeah.
it is an expectation, but it is not a really hard and fast rule. So if you are following this sequence, you may get a C.
Yeah, but I think it's good that you know,
You know.
face
Yeah,
that
yeah,
issue now,
yeah,
so that if in the exam you know that okay, I have to, cover this.
Yeah.
yeah. Realizing my mistake, of course, I will. So, yeah, but then thank you for your response, guys.
No worries.
Do we have any other questions?
Maybe until then.
I have one
Actually,
question.
Yes, Akansha.
Actually, you mentioned that you just spent 45 minutes reading day two case. I spend usually 1 hour, 20 minutes around it reading day two case. Is there like any trick that I can reduce that time? Because I usually miss a AO even if I try doing everything, because yesterday I practiced a case and I was able to complete everything except one, but it was like September 2015 case. There is no MA issues, it's FR and audit only.
Guneet used to read in 40, 45 minutes. I used to read in 60, 65, 70 minutes. So I was a slow reader, but obviously seeing her that she used to, start writing the case,
He would get
and
nervous.
and I'm still reading 10 more pages and she's writing responses because we used to attend at the same time. So I was on the same boat. So I would suggest to try to read fast. That
But Akansha, again, out of curiosity, what do you think takes you a lot of time? Because like we can't, we don't. You are the one who can answer that. Like, what takes you so long?
Because when I read like FR issues, I start thinking like what to write, and I just mention my pointers over there so that I can write it later. Because
so
I've seen that I've started analyzing those things.
so don't do that. Just know, okay, see, you are reading and that's a non-monetary question. You are reading another assessment opportunity and okay, this is a government grant question. So good question that Guneet asked you. So I can suggest one thing to you here. How I improved is the areas that I know that I will have to go back always. Say if it is a FA opportunity, financial reporting question, I would have to go into the specifics. So I do not read that question in detail because I know I will have to go back. I just skim it through. Okay, this is an intangible question, 2 pages on intangibles. doesn't make my time worth it, I will have to come back to it.
So skim through, not
skim
that
through.
you just leave the pages.
Yeah.
Skim through, because
Skim
there
through.
can be interconnectivities between
Yeah.
different AOs.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
a good point. So that okay, there is an intangible question. If something is related to that in the coming pages, so you may be able to interlink that, but I am not very sure of how I skim that time. But I did used to, so like Guneet is mentioning that skim those through. So I used to almost pass it through on the was only on the areas where I knew that there would not be any interrelation. So this is something you would know with time. That okay, this is something I would be reading when I would be attempting that
So
question.
basically, what he means is, like, you have an MA question and you know that the question, by the start of it, you know that maybe it's
Maybe it's a variance analysis.
maybe it's a variance analysis
Yeah.
question.
Mhm.
Right? And you know that on the page, like the remaining part of the page, there's only a table and it has all the numbers and variances and maybe costs written. So that's a question that
Yeah.
you have to come back at the numbers when you're doing. So you can
Yeah.
skip that part and just move on to the next page. But like, he doesn't mean that he would just skip the whole question, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, yeah, I got that.
Yeah. So just try doing that. And one more thing, do you spend time on the outline? Like in that 1 hour, 20 minutes, are you also making the outline?
Yeah, I try to write the requireds on a page and then just mention the appendix number which they relate to and on the page numbers.
See, I'll be honest, it
let's
takes
say-
a lot of time, Akansha. I was
Yeah.
and I changed it because I was taking a lot of time. I would first write the requireds, then I would make a table, and then I would fit in page numbers, appendix numbers, I would write down
Doesn't make
numbers.
sense.
But when I would actually start writing the case, I would still feel that, okay, I'll take those numbers from the case only, because I'm not sure if I would have done some mistake in writing it in that table. So I would again go to the case and bring those numbers. So it made no
Yeah.
sense for me to create that outline. So then Ravneet had already started outlining the question paper itself, like
Like
markings on
basically
the
taking
question.
the requirements directly into the Word file.
Yeah.
And do not
Okay.
on a separate piece of paper.
Or the
See,
Word document.
we are 20 days from the exam. So
Mhm.
your strategies,
Like, try to change it. Maybe this one works
according
better
to
for you also, but maybe it doesn't. Just
Yeah.
give it a try on one.
maybe one case.
Okay.
If it works for you, good. Otherwise, rely on our first suggestions, which we previously gave, that, try to skim through.
But even on day 3 cases, Akansha, we didn't do an outline.
No.
We just, while we are reading the case, we are doing our markings, like this is R1, risk 1. This is,
Yeah.
Weakness 1. If there's an internal control question, there's
Mhm.
1 weakness, 2 weakness, 3. If it's a RAM question, we are doing risk 1, risk 2, risk 3.
Yeah.
Requireds, we are directly noting down in our paper. So, yeah. So, we were just doing that, and it saved us, I think, like almost 10-15 minutes
Sure.
of getting it all out on the Word
Yeah.
file first, and then starting your paper, and then going back to that first page time and again, because you just get one word.
Yeah.
And the best part, Akansha, there is where you have all your requireds on the first page of your
Yeah.
Word. Okay, I am done with 13 requireds. I think I have read my paper in complete sense. I have not missed out on anything. All I need to do now is just complete these 13
Slot
hours
the
time
answers.
by time, time by time.
Yeah, and it would really
Okay.
help me, because say I did 6 AOs out of the 13. Now when I'm scrolling up and down, I can see that I have this question pending, I have the second question pending, I have the first.
Yeah.
Now I could decide which one I want to go next,
Yeah.
which one I'm
Mhm.
or I know.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to go back to the case and find requireds and then analyze, okay, let's do this first. Like, I had that in front of my eyes all the time, so it was very convenient.
And the structure of all the D2s is mostly the same. So
Yeah.
you normally know where different annexures are, exhibits are, where is those first two, where are those first two pages which has the assurance detailing. So, just try doing this.
Yeah, try that with one case.
Okay. Okay, I'll try that way.
And to Dashmeet's question, are we permitted to scribble on the case paper? Yes.
Just that they take it back.
They take it
So-
back, but yeah, you can make your notes.
I have a question. In the Capstone 2 material, we have received some information about files about DAIS activity and something. Like, should we study that? and how?
Can you rephrase that, Pragya?
DAIS, I mean, it's all that computer techniques, I guess, for audit and everything. So they have shared some files for that and some data.
You can just skim through as to, if those sort of questions come up, which they have in the past. I think a couple of questions have come in the past. So just know, okay, if these sort of pie charts come in my exam, how do I analyze it? Because all they want from, that data set is how you analyze that data, how basically you're reading that data. So if you're doing that fine, you should be okay. Like, do not get much worried around that.
But yeah, just I would say that just practice at least one case or like a question in one case, which does it, because I remember TMB when I wrote
Yes, Tasty Meals and couple of other cases have these charts and graphs, and you
TMB
have to
was the
just
first
analyze.
case that I came across which had these charts, and I was a little clueless. Like I did my best, but when I actually went and debriefed it, I wasn't anywhere near the,
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that is when I realized that, how they were comparing each and every little thing. Like there's so many
Yes.
charts and
Mhm.
tables in that TMB question. So it
Yes.
was a very good example.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Just go through that once before the exam so that you kind of remember.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Anybody else? Anything?
I just have a very basic question again here. So could you guys please comment on the abbreviations, like the common abbreviations that we use on a daily basis, and like that's more universal and that can be easily understood by the examiners. Like there's no need to elaborate
Would you
in the exam. For example, number. So I like NO and a dot, like abbreviations like this, which are like very, I mean, easily.
should be okay. Yeah. And any which ways, like this paper is not about grammar. So because
Yeah, even if you do spelling mistakes,
that's okay.
that's okay. But it should be clear. Like
Should
you
be
should be
clear.
clear in what you are trying to put across.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Okay. My next question was this only. How about grammatical errors and these spelling mistakes? Because while typing,
yeah,
it takes a lot of time to delete the entire word and then retype.
You
So,
don't have to be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to be
Mhm.
perfect. If you are conveying and you think your communication is okay, so
yeah,
you're fine.
yeah, that's okay. Like I had to make this a point that I am specifically letting the spelling mistakes go because I was a perfectionist, so it took me some time to, let it be. I know that I've done that wrong, but let it be.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you.
Seeing the chat, if you have any further questions there. Vaishni had a question. Can you please discuss about special reports?
Oh, this.
So on this Vaishnavi, maybe so yeah. So special report is one of the questions which comes time and again, where they will give you a particular situation and ask you as an auditor of what are the special report options. So two reports are a must, like options to give at least two reports is a must, and compare between both of them in terms of which one you would suggest. So maybe you just need to know what report comprises what sort of opinion or analysis or communication. Give at least two responses and compare and conclude which one are you suggesting, because anywhere there are two options, so you have to suggest. I think that's the brief comment I have. If you have any specific question, you can drop me a ping after the chat perhaps. Any further questions, guys?
I just had one question, like regarding the time allocation for day two. Like you mentioned that we can spend like 60 minutes odd on reading and then 70 minutes for 7 AOs in order, like 10 into 7. So that means we are left with good enough time for FR and MA. So like, is it okay if we spend like 20 minutes odd in those AOs because we are left with that much time, right?
Yeah, that was the thought process that normally, it can take longer for FAAOs
Yeah.
because day two is normally longer questions as compared to day three. Day three questions are, I would say they are a little basic, they
Mhm.
cover very core topics of FA also, but
Yeah.
then they are very basic. Like you don't have to go into a lot of analysis.
Like something like a non-monetary transaction would come up on a D3 more because
Yeah.
you do not have to analyze much, or maybe even a related party transaction question would come up more on D3, and even on day two these small questions can come, but if there are smaller questions which are coming up, they would be bundled with the bigger questions, maybe a detailed revenue recognition or a lease question.
Something like that. So yeah, the idea is that it can be a little difficult to complete a- all the audit questions also in 10 minutes. So
Yeah.
10 minutes is roughly, it's like a rough estimate
So when
that
we
you
say 10 is, it's like 10, 12, 10, 12
10,
minutes.
12. But then it only means that you have a look at the watch and you know that, my 10 minutes are going to be over. So
Yeah.
by the time you wrap it up, you will end up in 12, 13 minutes. But because you give yourself that buffer, you should still be okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
10 minutes, why we say 10 minutes, say if you are starting your exam just now and you have started your case writing with WIR and it's 10:20 and you're still on WIR. So these are
Yeah.
the situations you need to avoid.
You
Mhm.
can't be on
You
the
can't be on
same
that.
AO
Yeah.
for 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and especially
Yeah.
assurance, like 13 minutes, okay, you may be able to cover the time up maybe with FR or maybe another AO, but you just need to have that ballpark estimates in your mind.
Yeah. Also, I noticed that like I have been writing like sentences, and in the strong sample response, they are like very crisp and to the point. And honestly, it saves up so much time, especially in day three as well. Because if I'm not writing sentences and not being clear, I feel that I might miss out on something and I might not be graded. But seeing at the sample response, it feels like it is not very loud and clear, but it is very crisp, and they it is still being called a sample strong response for a reason.
I think you have 20 days. You all will get more perfectionist here as to how you are, framing your CFE answers. So you should be okay.
Yeah, but it was a sea change for me also because I used to write very long statements. I used to repeat case facts also in my issues and in the analysis, like a lot of it. And then obviously I used to exceed my time. But then when I looked at a couple of strong responses, I realized the same thing that they used to be so to the point, not repeating case facts at all, just giving out the right amount of information. And you could see the response and know that, okay, this guy would have finished on time.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can do that. You should do that. Then I stopped being very verbose and then I started being precise.
Like
Yeah, I think that's the key.
I so one of my friends told me that so we are all Indian CAs here. We are used to describe our responses in a very detailed fashion, but the people here who have started from core, PEP, etc., they finish up the exam 20-25 minutes before and then they revise. So imagine. So if they are completing the exam, 30 minutes before, so obviously they are very strict on their timelines. They are not exceeding any time on a specific AO. In fact, they are leaving time for revision. You may have not heard this before, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's the truth.
I think Indians are really, they like to be very clear and hardworking. That's why
Which is
we
nice.
tend to have this. Yeah.
And then one more thing, guys, that I don't know if you already account for this or not, but how do you know what I'm about to say? But like on the day of exams, since these are very long exams and it's just the morning, you have to plan your morning in a way that you kind of freshen up before the exam. Because in the event that you have to use the restroom during the exam, it will easily take 10 minutes because like these are big auditoriums that you have an exam in, and the washroom is right like across the auditorium, so you will see people running towards the washroom and then running back to their seats. So when we say 10 minutes in day two, you will feel that okay, we are left with buffer time at the end, but that will not be the case. One, you will exceed times here and there in other AOs. Second, FA AOs will never finish in 10 minutes because they are a little long, and sometimes MA AOs as well, depending on what you get in your exam. And then sometimes you'll have to, you that buffer will get used in these things also. So
we actually used to
Prepare
joke.
for the
We
best.
actually used to joke around. This is the 14th AO, which you should be prepared for. So, yeah,
And the
and
ACs in the auditoriums don't help.
don't help. Yeah, and maybe because Guneet is discussing these questions as well. Maybe fourth file we can drop a question a message in the chat as well. Once we are more closer to the exam, maybe 5 to 6 days before, we can conduct another coffee chat, which would be only exam oriented. If you have any questions around the exams or any last minute guidance you may need, so we can conduct that as well. If you have any specific questions, because I had a lot of questions, what I can take, what I cannot, and basic questions. How do I manage? What sort of laptops are there? Do they offer calculators? Do we need to practice on calculators before we go and stuff like that? So, yeah.
I have one question. I know it's too late to ask this one on day two. I've been reading day two cases to get or to understand the technicals that are being involved, but to write, how do you suggest the first step? Because for me to write day two, I don't know, I'm not at all confident in spite of writing day three and day one and gaining a bit confidence there. How do you suggest to go about day two given the time that I'm left with for the exams?
I think you still have time if you are on leave, especially. So you still have time. Uh, I think you may have written. I think that's who is on the chat? I think Shalini. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
Shalini, you may have written. I think 2, 3 day 2s until now.
Yeah,
Because
but of course not. I wouldn't even consider them as I've written because of the way that I wrote them.
that's fine. Like that's totally fine if you have time in terms of you're not, you are able to spare time from work. Consider writing 21 days, right? Maybe 5 days.
Mhm.
Try to
Five
what
may be a
four,
lot. Only I think
four.
three to four Shalini should be good. Just make it a point
So
that
how do I start about it? I feel like my technicals is not good, and that's not giving me the confidence to, start a case even.
I think then it's about mindset. When I used to write cases and also debrief, I used to think that, okay, I'm writing this case to learn, not that I'm ready for the exam. So try to think
Okay.
of this fashion that when you will write a case, today I'm writing intangible asset AO and government grant, although I know the technical, but I would now learn or today learn how do I incorporate that with the facts of the case.
yeah.
So
Okay.
consider this as a learning opportunity for you and not that you are missing out on things, because many people here, even on this call, you know, are still on the same boat and are still learning as and when they write each and every case. That is why when Guneet mentions 3 cases, she means you write 3 cases, but you debrief them
Debrief them.
properly.
Understood.
Write the case for 5 hours, debrief for 6 hours, and
Correct.
try to take those learnings from there. Okay, what did I learn from this case today?
But Shalini, honestly, it like you will need only one day to case to get through this fear.
Yeah.
And why I say that, because the first time when I was writing it, I was in the same boat. It's like a simple government grant question. I know in my head what has to happen with that government grant, but I
Mm,
didn't know the structure. And in that cases, what will happen is that you will get through the exam, say like a 5 hour exam in like 3.5 or 4 hours because you didn't write enough. But
correct.
now when you will debrief and you will compare how this institute or the perfect response also had the exact same response, but just the way they structured it was so different than what you did. And in that first case, it will not be about C's or RC's.
Yeah.
It, like Ravneet said, it is only about learning how to do it the next time.
Yeah.
So the
Okay.
first day two case, just keep in your head that I'm just writing this as a trial ball, right?
Yeah.
I'm not expecting anything out of it. I'm just writing it for the sake of it and then comparing it to the response to know how I should have written it. So what many people would do is that they would directly say that, okay, I won't write the case. I will just, read the case and then see how the institute did it, and I will know what, how to do it.
Exactly.
But that doesn't help until and unless you yourself get into the case, you think about it, brainstorm, you write it down, attempt the case. And then when you compare it to the case, then you will see, oh, right, they connected this fact to this information here and this is how they did it. And sometimes you will be amazed that, wow, just, look at how they did it. Because it happened with me when I used to look at strong responses. I would see, wow, so easily this guy, just linked it in one statement, and I couldn't do it even if I got to the right answer. So just like it will be a great learning experience, and you will gain a lot of confidence also. So give that one case a try, and then after that, try writing 3 more cases.
And Shalini, a suggestion for you and maybe for everyone on the call, when you consider day two difficult, see, break it into a couple of parts. There are six. We discussed it at
That
the
is
beginning
what
of
we
the call.
did before
Like,
the exam, and it really helped. This
like,
mindset really helped.
like there are first six are FR and MAOs, then seven are assurance AOs. So now when you deep dive into it, uh, I would suggest, Shalini, you should know the structure. Say if there is a materiality question or a risk question which comes up. When a risk question comes up, you know that first you need to mention factors increasing the risk, then factors decreasing the risk, and then overall risk. So this is the structure of the risk question. When materiality comes, then you start off what is the, who are the users? Who are the users who are concerned with the financial statements, on the basis of which you decide the materiality,
Yeah,
and
correct.
then do the PM, and then the percentages. You need to know that 7 point structure in materiality. And when you would know that structure, you would know, okay, risk, materiality, procedures, special reports. There could be a question
Like
on
this
internal
all
audit
will be on your on your
on your fingers,
fingers.
and you already know the structure. All you need to do is just put the facts in. The problem at this point of time, even without reviewing your cases, I would feel is if you do not know the structure, perhaps, which is why you are missing. So if you go, so this is the assurance part. Now, when you go to FR and MA, say you are going to FR, you should be knowing, say if there is an intangible question which comes up, you should be knowing what is IGA. Like you start off with
Hmm.
the issue, then the gap, then the analysis, then the recommendation.
Recommendation, right.
Okay, now you know IGA, good. You are doing your issue well, you're doing your analysis and recommendation well, but you do not know what the gap is. So then you know, okay, I'm missing out on gaps, so maybe I need to refresh my FR note. So shall we take a look? So
Yeah, I've been in your FR class.
the crash course from us, because you have done the crash course. Second time, you do not need to go through the videos, just go through the notes, fairly quick. And then even if you do your gap analysis or the gap provision wrong, that is fine. But the next time, okay, I did this wrong. This is the point. Because at the after we did like 4, 5, 6 cases, Guneet and myself, we knew, okay, in intangible asset, definition is a must. If you are not doing your definition, you would not get a C. So things like these, so you just drill
You
down
just
with
keep
time,
getting comfortable with it.
comfortable and improving with time. So
Especially with audit, we know that one question we will always have for an internal control weakness, like
Yeah.
a WIR analysis. One we would always, they will
Risk
always
for-
give us for some sort of procedures that, they are wanting procedures
Always.
for this.
Yeah.
You will always have, like, out of 7 questions, I've already told you that these 2 questions will always be there in the exam.
Yeah.
You can go to any number of cases in the past year
Yeah.
attempts, and you will see that they always have these 2 questions.
Yeah.
Third question is, like, one of the procedure question will always be a separate, that they are asking you as a CPA to give them procedures for these 2 items. The third question will always be about a risk and procedure in connection.
Yeah.
So you will always have in that a structure of risk, assertions, and procedures.
Yeah.
So these are the 3. Then there could be one question about, say, special reports.
Special reports.
Right? There could be one of that. There could be one question for a RAM. So these are 5 questions. So when you think of it like this, you will see that, there's nothing very difficult happening. It's only repetition of these questions. And the remaining 2 can be, sometimes they can be, like a low baller, or something very easy, or something difficult
maybe
also.
say could be a due diligence procedure, or could be a another basic question which you would know,
Or maybe
with-
something that you
without-
don't know. It could be something that came out of the blues, because I think we were doing one case wherein there was a joint auditor question.
Yeah.
And obviously now that is something
You cannot
nobody would be
prepare for.
prepared. Not even you, but you have to have that faith that if I am not prepared for it and it is not tested, but it just came out of the blue, nobody sitting in this exam hall is prepared for that.
So try to prepare for 80%
Yeah.
of the 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 parts that you know, that
Yeah.
you know that these would come up. Do not prepare for the questions which come only once a time. So there is a question on consolidation and financial reporting. If you are preparing only for that, then you are missing out on a lot of the other ones. So I was taking another case today. So on that, the student spent, I would have spent 35 minutes only on one FR issue on day two, and there was another question on non-monetary on which the student would
A
have spent five,
simpler
7
one
minutes.
comparatively, correct.
Yes, 7 minutes, but you understand that even those 35 minutes couldn't give that student a C. But non-monetary had the student done it slightly more time, even 2 minutes more, there would have been a C. So yeah,
Understood.
it's you need to balance out different AOs. Do not get emotional with that. I would do revenue recognition all the time. It is okay to leave revenue recognition in the exam and do all the other
First, all
balance
the
it
others first.
Yeah.
Yeah, not least.
Yeah.
Okay, and one last thing for like everybody, and this applies to day 3, day 2, whatever case that you're looking at. If there is a question that is, something that came out of the blue, you don't know it. Even if it is a quant question, just know that it is new for everybody there. Nobody is prepared for that. So don't leave it. Don't leave it, because if you completely leave that question, you will get an NC. Yeah, right, because you didn't NA, that because you didn't attempt it. But say that somebody else who for whom also this question was equally difficult, but maybe say they, for example, in the question for audit, like a joint auditor question, now you don't know what the standard said about it. If you have the time in exam, go through the nausea and find the standard for the joint auditor. Maybe you are able to find something. If you don't have the time, write a couple of pointers on a logical thinking, on a logical thinking in case facts. What can you think of it? Just write something down, so that, because it's not mark system, like you're not being marked out of 10, that if you only did 2 points and those were wrong, you'll get a 0 or you'll get a 1 mark out of 10. Just understand that if something is difficult, it is difficult for everybody. There is a possibility that the people who did attempt it, even if they didn't attempt it the way the CPA board would have expected them to, but they still attempted or gave a shot to it, they could have gotten an RC.
Yeah.
Right? But then if you don't attempt it at all, you stand no chance. So don't leave it, because in our day 2 MA, we had 2 questions from MA, and both were very difficult questions. Like, I won't say difficult, but
Difficult
something
for
that
us,
people,
maybe, yeah.
yeah, but
Like
people
similar-
don't study those
similar to
things.
the topics like we were discussing. Consolidation is one of the questions which people do not study much.
Like, we had a sales mix variance question. Now, who remembers formulas for sales mix variance? Like, and I remember that we both revised the formulas the day before,
Except sales mix.
yeah.
So
But then we
that
didn't
came-
remember it,
yeah.
and then I just made up a formula in my head. Now I don't know if it was right or if it was wrong, but I know that I did something in there.
Only
So
the allotted time. We didn't go beyond the time.
yeah.
Beyond those 10, 12 minutes which we had, kept for that day. We didn't go beyond that and did not rule that, okay, we will do this question correctly. So do what
yeah,
you can.
but the point being that don't just leave it, do something, like do anything, but do it. Like, don't just leave it there, because then you definitely will not get anything.
Got it. Thank you so much, both of you.
No problem.
I've messaged Ravneet a lot of times with so many questions, and I'm sure I'd be going to do that for the rest 20 days too.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
This was actually the first time that the results came out, because like September we only qualified, so that
Yeah,
since we started like
Mentoring.
mentoring, I would say this was the first time that the results came out, and it was like so good to see
Yeah.
people. But in May we didn't have a lot of students
Yeah.
appearing from the group, because we
I
just
think-
started in February or
Yeah, we
March.
started in Feb, and in May, I think we had around 8 students who were appearing, who are in the group and outside the group, and I think most of them cleared. Just one of the students could not get through with day one,
Day one,
but most of them did.
But it was such a good feeling. And now this time in September, we do have a lot of people, especially with, so many students who've also been taking courses with us. So this time we like, it's as good as we have our own exam. So it's perfectly okay. If any of you have any questions or need any help, just like feel free to reach out.
sure. Thank you so much again.
Pragya, you have any question?
Yeah, just one small question. In a lot of questions, like it's just asked that, like calculate break-even point, that's all. They do not ask for calculation, like do any qualitative analysis or something, especially on day three. So when used to write, I saw that okay, they didn't do any qualitative analysis. So I skipped doing that when it was a straight question, like just calculate price or the minimum amount to be charged. But then I saw in some questions when like they were asking just a direct questions, but then they are giving a qualitative analysis. So I'm very confused there what to do. I'm concluding it. I'm writing like any additional thing I should like recommend to the company or whatever my client, but I'm not doing a qualitative analysis. So what do you suggest for that? Like, should I just randomly give couple of points to be on safe side?
Points. Two qualitative points do not hurt if you have time. If
Okay.
you don't have any time at all, then maybe you can skip. But on a day three, surely, even quants may suffice. But on day two, the questions are slightly more descriptive, so surely give a qualitative.
Yeah, right.
As a general response, I would say consider giving two qualitative uh, pointers, try to slot them. Do not give a detailed, like when I say a point,
Yes.
do not give 3 lines on that, maybe 1.5 line, and
Mhm.
give it 2 times. So you should be okay.
But I would
Okay.
say that, Pragya, that you would know by the question. If there are any qualitative facts that they are touching on, it
Yes, right.
they're expecting you to do a
Okay. Okay,
so if
understood.
it's just a simple question like calculate break-even points or units, then
Mhm.
obviously there's nothing more to it. Yeah. But then if there is like a capacity thing or they're mentioning something about the goods being produced or anything, it means that they want you to touch on it. So
Yeah.
then you should do it because MA and finance questions can be confusing. Like you won't know which question was an MA question or a finance question. In finance question, normally like make or buy decisions or sell
Yes.
or purchase or there's two or three financing options for an asset that you're considering. In those questions, they always require you to do a qualitative analysis even in day three.
Yeah.
But just know that on day three, your qualitative analysis is only a one-liner. One-liner as in like there can be 2, 3 points, but only one-liner points. Like it's not like a very detailed analysis that they expect. So if I remember that there was a financing question, like there were three options. One was leasing, one was I think maybe buying, or there was a third which was on loan or EMI, something like that. But then in those three, what I used to do was that if you do it all like separately, it will take a lot of time to do that 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to the appendix for the quant, and then you're coming back here for the qualitative, and then you're writing, please refer appendix 1 for the calculation, and then qualitative you're doing here. So things like these can take a lot of time. So what I used to do is that you simply just like, list down the three quants first, right? And
Yeah.
then just one liner of 1 or 2, 3 points, whatever, how many points you're able to take out, just do that in the Excel itself so that you don't have to switch between the Excel and Word. And in the Word, just simply refer that, please refer to appendix A, B, C, whatever, for
Yeah.
the quantitative and qualitative analysis, and just the recommendation you can write in the Word.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
That
Thank you very much. Yeah.
little things, but saves a couple of minutes here and there.
Especially on
Yes.
they would specifically ask you for qualitative analysis. You may not have to do. So there are questions when, in the question which Kuneet is mentioning, that is core quant. Like these sort of questions, once you practice more, you would know that these are pure quant questions.
Yes. Okay.
Had qualitative.
But that was like different, was counted as a different year.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Okay, all right, guys. Thank you so much for joining in.
Quick
And
question, Guneet.
yeah, go
Quick,
ahead.
for revenue rec question, there is an issue for consignment sales. So I didn't wrote the whole revenue rec part. I just used the consignment sales and then just linked my case facts to that. Is that okay, or do we need to do all those 5 steps plus the analysis if there is just an issue for consignment sales?
See, I would say for day two, again, it depends on how deep of
The
you know
question is.
or what exactly were they. If it's a day two question, I would say that it just cannot be as simple as a consignment sale. So just to be on a safer side, I will just mention 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and just write the heading, do a one-liner to be on the safer side,
Okay.
so that I don't miss
Okay.
out on a C. Even if I know everything, I know the response, I'm doing the correct thing, why take a risk? Just like, write it.
Okay. Okay.
So
Got that.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
No
no worries at all.
problem.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. I think almost 10 students are still on the call, so that's nice to see. Seriously.
Thank you so much, guys. I guess like this is the first time I've been joining this chat, and this is like so helpful to know that everybody is sailing through the same boat. Like the guidance or the suggestions, the tips that we get from you, like that's tremendously helpful. So thank you so much.
No worries, you're welcome.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
guys. Yep.
We will still have the
So
recording, like
much.
we have this recording, so we will upload this on the YouTube and share the link. So even if you guys want to, go back and listen to something again, you can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for joining
Good
in.
night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good night, all.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. Bye-bye.